The glass rose slowly. My father's laughter filled the room, like he owned the air in it. Your sister built her life with her own hands, he said, eyes cutting toward me. Unlike some people at this table, no one moved. Mom's hand hovered over the serving spoon like time had stopped. Helena stared at her plate. The candles kept burning indifferent. Something cold settled behind my ribs. Not anger, worse than anger. Recognition. I set down my fork, pressed my back into the chair. When I finally spoke, my voice was barely there. Then, I'll stop sending you the money. Dad's face changed, completely, instantly. What money? He genuinely didn't know. And in that silence, that devastating, clarifying silence, 5 years of careful lies came apart at once. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, the way a house settles when the foundation finally gives. That was the night our family stopped pretending to be fine. Before I go further, where are you watching this from? Drop your city, or just tell me one thing about your setup right now. Couch, kitchen, car, 3 a.m. in bed with headphones on. I read every single one. Every quiet corner you're writing from matters here. From the outside, we were the family people envied. Sunday dinners with real tablecloths, matching outfits at Christmas, the framed photo above the fireplace where everyone smiled at exactly the right moment. We looked like the answer to someone's prayer. Inside, I was invisible, not neglected in any way people would notice, just overlooked, consistently, quietly, in the way that only daughters who never cause trouble understand. I apologized first. I stayed small. I learned early that keeping the peace was my job, even when I hadn't started the fire. Helena was different. She didn't try to shine. She just did. Teachers mentioned her name at parent meetings. Neighbors stopped Dad on the street to compliment her. Mum's face changed when Helena walked into a room. Softer, brighter, proud in a way she never quite managed with me. Dad ran our household the way he'd run his restaurant before the economy took it. Loud commands, sharp expectations, no room for uncertainty. Mum moved around him like water around stone, filling every crack his temper left behind. Her specialty was the apology no one asked for. Then the recession came, and everything that had been bending finally broke. The mortgage went late. Bills stacked. The refrigerator hummed too loudly. The paint on the shutters started peeling in strips. Hope thinned in ways you could actually see. I had just started at my architecture firm. I wasn't comfortable, but I was steady. And steady, I decided, was enough to share. I called Mum on a Tuesday evening. $5,000 a month. I'd wire it quietly. No announcement, no expectation. Just help. There was one complication. Dad didn't trust digital banking. He believed screens lied, ironic in retrospect. So Mom suggested routing the transfers through Helena. She'd receive the money, deliver it where it needed to go, keep everything organized. I've got it handled, she told me. Her texts were always brief, clean, confident, mortgage covered, bills sorted, everything's fine. And I believed her because I wanted to, because believing her was easier than asking the questions forming quietly in the back of my mind. Months passed. The transfers became routine, a line item in my budget labeled simply, family. Sometimes I'd sit with the math late at night. 5,000 a month adds up fast. 60,000 in a year. I told myself it was worth it. Told myself I was helping. Told myself the warm feeling in my chest when Mom said, Helena's been managing everything so well, was gratitude, not warning. The house still looked tired when I visited. The fridge still hummed, the shutters still peeled, But the mortgage was stable. Dad had said so himself. I wanted to believe him. I really did. One evening, I sat beneath our family portrait in the hallway. 4 faces, 4 smiles, and somewhere beneath all of it, one missing truth so heavy it had warped the floor beneath us all. If I had looked closer, I would have seen how unevenly we were arranged, who carried the weight, who smiled to cover it. But I didn't look closer, not yet. The night of that dinner, I lay in my old childhood room, staring at the ceiling. The plastic glow-in-the-dark stars were still up there, faded, lopsided, collecting dust at the edges. I'd pressed each one to the ceiling when I was 9 years old, back when the future still felt like something I could design. Down the hall, sounds drifted. Mum crying, muffled and exhausted. Dad pacing, that uneven rhythm I'd memorized before I could drive. Helena's door, locked, silent. I opened my laptop. The bank statements loaded slowly, the way terrible things always seem to arrive with enough time for dread to settle in first. Line after line, dates, amounts, my name attached to every transaction. 5,000. First of the month, every month, for over a year, $60,000. My fingerprints on every cent. I hadn't meant to fund a lie, but lies don't ask permission, they just need silence. And silence had always been my specialty. Morning found Dad at the kitchen table, elbows down, jaw tight, red eyes that hadn't slept. Mom stood at the window with untouched coffee going cold in her hands. She says it's in some kind of company, Mom said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. A company, I repeated. What kind of company pays a mortgage? It's tied up, Dad said. She keeps saying it's tied up. In what? He shook his head. There was no answer, just shame. Wearing exhaustion's face, we waited for Helena to wake. She never did. By the time we moved toward her room, the car was already gone. Her space was swept clean, not packed precisely, just emptied, the way someone leaves when they've been planning it. One thing remained, a sticky note on the dresser, the ink still fresh. Don't overreact, I'll fix it. I stared at those 6 words until they stopped meaning anything. Then I put my phone down, opened my laptop and started building a paper trail. Every transfer, every date, every message saved and screenshotted. I worked methodically, the way my architecture training had taught me. Find the structure beneath the surface, follow what's load-bearing, identify the fracture before you start repair. Evan arrived that evening, sat beside me without asking why, watched me work in silence. You're going deep, he said quietly. I have to, I told him. This isn't about the money anymore. What's it about? How long she had to practice to lie that smoothly. He nodded, didn't flinch, just asked, what's next? The bank, I said. And then a lawyer. The branch manager read the transaction history with a pen tapping an unsteady rhythm. When she looked up, her expression was professional, but her eyes gave her away. These funds were redirected, she said carefully, through an intermediary account. Whose account? She turned the screen toward me. One name, Mason Vale. Something hardened in my chest. Not surprise. I'd stopped being surprised hours ago. Just clarity. Sharp and cold as January air. A name, a path, a trail laid so carelessly that it had never occurred to Helena I might think to follow it. Outside, the cold hit my face like a correction. I pulled my coat tighter, breath fogging in front of me, and started walking. You wanted to play with trust, I thought. Fine, let's see what truth costs. 3 mornings later, the doorbell rang before the coffee had finished brewing. I opened the door. A man stood on the porch. Jeans, hoodie, smile calibrated carefully in too many mirrors. Morning, he said. You must be Rachel. The name landed wrong in his mouth. Mason Vale, in the flesh, arriving, apparently, to clean up a mess he'd assumed would stay quiet. Dad appeared behind me, jaw set, body blocking the doorway on instinct. Mason lifted a thin folder with the confidence of someone who's charmed his way out of every room he's ever been in. Just here to clear up a misunderstanding. Helena asked me to bring documentation. He moved inside without being invited, spread papers across our table like he owned the surface. Mock-ups, pitch language, growth charts that curved upward toward nothing. It's a startup, he said proudly. Dad flipped through the pages. This is nonsense. Every significant company starts small. $60,000 small? I asked. His expression shifted. The first crack in the performance. Before he could answer, tires crunched on the driveway. Helena's white sedan. She stepped out slowly, sunglasses up, shoulders braced. When she saw Mason standing in our living room, the mask she'd been wearing slipped entirely. What are you doing here? Fixing it, he said. Like I promised. You weren't supposed to come. Dad stepped forward. You took your sister's money. You stood in this kitchen and told us things were handled. It is an investment, Helena said, her voice fracturing. It's not. Explain it then, I said, because the mortgage slipped 2 months and he bought a car. She turned to Mason. Her voice dropped to something broken. You said we'd double it. Plans evolve. Mum's voice split the air like something tearing. We trusted you, Helena. I turned to Mason. What's your actual business model? I'm an entrepreneur, he said, still smiling. Still interesting, I said. Your last LLC owes 18 months of child support. The smile died. Helena turned to him. Something in her face collapsed. The last wall between who she'd believed he was and who was standing in her parents' kitchen. A knock at the door. Firm. Official. Red and blue light pulsed through the front window. Mason turned to me. What did you do? I called 2 hours ago, I said. I just wanted to meet you first. They cuffed him quietly. He didn't perform on the way out. The confidence had left him entirely. Like air from a puncture. At the door, he turned back. You think this solves anything? I met his eyes. For you? No. For us? Yes. The door closed. The house exhaled for the first time in over a year. The courthouse smelled like recycled air and institutional carpet. I walked between my parents. Helena a half step behind. None of us spoke. The silence between us had changed. It wasn't hiding anything anymore. It was just the quiet of people who were tired and honest, and finally in the same room with the same information. Mason sat at the defense table too relaxed, foot tapping, wearing confidence like a costume 1 size too large. The prosecutor presented $60,000 of evidence with the kind of patience that only comes from absolute certainty. Dates, transfers, screenshots. The story told itself. Did you authorize these transfers? She asked Helena gently. Helena swallowed hard. No, I trusted him. Mason laughed quietly. She knew exactly. Enough. The judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. A second witness entered. A young woman with exhausted eyes and a toddler balanced on her hip. She spoke 3 sentences. She'd believed Mason too. He'd disappeared. The judge leaned forward when she spoke. Mr. Vale exploited personal trust to access and redirect funds not intended for him. This was not an investment. It was a calculated manipulation. 3 years. 18 months before parole eligibility. He didn't smile walking out. Helena's shoulders folded in on themselves in the hallway after. I didn't see it, she whispered. I kept looking at him and seeing what I wanted. Dad put his hand on her arm. His voice was rough but careful. "We put you somewhere too high," he said, "and forgot you could fall." I felt something release inside my chest. Not forgiveness, I wasn't there yet, but recognition, the beginning of something that might eventually become understanding. That evening, we stood in the backyard around a metal bowl. Inside it, receipts, photographs, printed wire confirmations, 3 handwritten notes Mason had given Helena in the beginning when everything still felt like possibility. I struck the match. The paper caught slowly, curled inward like it was trying to hold on. Helena watched without speaking until her eyes blurred. "He took so much," she said. "Then let tonight take him with it," I said. Ash drifted upward, light and aimless and gone. For the first time in years, our silence wasn't concealing anything. It was honoring something, the difficult, necessary thing we'd all finally chosen: truth, even when it cost everything. The house was different after, not renovated, not transformed, just honest. Mom opened the curtains in the morning. Dad started taking walks before breakfast, slower steps, lower shoulders. Helena found part-time work nearby. Nothing remarkable, just real. She showed up daily, started sitting with Mom in the garden some afternoons, hands in the soil, excuses finally quiet. One evening we ate together again. Simple food, shared air. No performances. Dad reached across the table and covered my hand with his. "You held this together," he said, "even when we gave you every reason not to." I didn't answer. I let the words sit. They didn't rewrite the past, but they gave it somewhere to go. I packed for Seattle a week later. New job, new apartment, a life that finally felt like something I'd built for myself, not around everyone else. Helena walked me to the car, sweatshirt sleeves pushed up, hair loose, eyes softer than I'd seen them since we were children. She pressed a small envelope into my hand. Inside, a photo from a state fair years ago. Cotton candy, sticky faces, genuine smiles with nothing to hide. On the back, in her handwriting, "Sometimes you have to lose everything you thought mattered to find what actually does." I hugged her. No promises, just presence. As I drove away, I watched the house grow smaller in my mirror. It didn't look broken. It didn't look healed. It looked like what it was, a place where people had finally told the truth and survived it. Family doesn't repair itself overnight, but truth gives it room to breathe. And boundaries, the ones you draw not out of anger, but out of self-respect, give it room to actually grow. The road ahead opened wide and quiet. It was mine. And for the first time, I drove toward it without apologizing. If any piece of this reached you, if you've ever been the quiet one, the one who gave without being seen, the one who kept the peace at your own expense, let it show. Share this with someone who needed to hear it today, and subscribe for more stories about the quiet courage it takes to finally choose yourself.